I always thought stalkers only happened to celebrities, influencers, or people who overshare online. I never imagined someone like me, an average girl from a quiet Massachusetts suburb, would ever be targeted, but I was wrong. Horribly, devastatingly wrong. Things you'd easily brush off if you didn't know any better. Then came the missing Amazon packages. The delivery notification said, delivered, left on porch, but when I came home, there was nothing. My landlord said he didn't see anything and my neighbors hadn't accidentally taken it. It all started with small things. One morning, as I was leaving for work, I noticed my trash can was slightly open, even though I remembered shutting it the night before. It made me angry. Who steals cat litter and shampoo refills, right? But I didn't feel scared. Not yet. The first time I truly felt fear was 2 weeks later. I quickened my pace, fumbled for my keys, and looked over my shoulder. He was gone. I had just come home from a long shift. It was past midnight, and my apartment parking lot was almost empty. His hood was up, and he was looking directly into the camera. The porch light illuminated half his face, pale, unshaven, with wide eyes that never blinked. For 43 seconds, he just stood there, breathing heavily, fogging up the camera lens. Then he walked away into the darkness. As I walked to my building, I saw a shadow under the flickering street lamp near the dumpsters. My hands shook as I downloaded the video and sent it to my friend Kelsey, typing, "WTF do I do? Should I call the cops?" Every time the old building creaked or my fridge motor hummed, I imagined footsteps, breathing, watching, a man, tall and thin, wearing a dark hoodie. He was standing completely still, just watching me. My heart pounded so hard it hurt my chest. That night, I barely slept. Written in thick black marker in large, messy letters were 2 words. But the next morning, when the sun was shining and birds chirped outside my window, I told myself it was just a creepy neighbor taking out trash late at night. Life moved on. I went to work, went to the gym, texted my friends about the upcoming girls' night. I didn't realize that was exactly what he wanted. For me to let my guard down. The next incident happened 3 days later. I woke up to a notification from my Ring doorbell camera. Motion detected, front door, 3:02 a.m. I opened the footage with a yawn, expecting to see a stray raccoon. Instead, I saw him. A man standing completely still at my doorstep, wearing the same dark hoodie. I wanted to vomit, but before she could even reply, another notification popped up. Motion detected, front door, 3:04 a.m. My vision blurred with tears as I clicked the alert. This time, he was holding a piece of paper in front of the camera. "Found you." I called the police that morning. I didn't care if they thought I was paranoid. An officer came over to take my statement. His name was Officer Daniels, a man in his late 40s with kind eyes, but I could tell he didn't think much of my story. "Did he damage anything? Threaten you directly?" he asked while glancing at his notepad. "Is that not threatening?" I snapped back, tears forming again. He wrote "found you" and stood outside at 3 a.m. "Install extra locks, keep your camera on, and call us if he returns." He sighed. "We'll increase patrols in your area, but unless he commits a crime, there's not much we can do." "You're safe," she whispered as we lay in bed that night. "He's probably just some creep who moved on to bother someone else." Her words were meant to comfort, but they made me feel worse. What if he hadn't moved on? What if he was just waiting for me to let my guard down again? After he left, I sat in silence, staring at the window, half expecting to see his pale face pressed against the glass again. My legs gave out as I stumbled back against the dresser, tears streaming down my face. I dialed 911 with shaking fingers. That's when I noticed something odd. On my nightstand, next to my phone charger, was a folded piece of paper I didn't remember putting there. I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded, clutching the hot mug of coffee I hadn't touched since he arrived. He was here. He stood over me while I slept. They didn't believe me. After they left, I packed a bag and drove to my mom's house 2 towns over. I couldn't spend another night in that apartment. There he was, standing at my door again, wearing the same dark hoodie. This time, he wasn't looking at the camera. He was looking down, holding something in his hand, my spare apartment key. For days, I couldn't sleep. I checked the camera footage every hour. But there was nothing. No alerts, no motion, no shadowy figures. It was like he vanished. Kelsey came to stay over. We'll send someone to check the apartment again. Stay at your mom's tonight. We'll follow up tomorrow. Every creak of the house felt like a footstep. Every car driving by sent adrenaline surging through my veins. My mom tried to comfort me, but I could tell she was scared too. Did you leave anyone with access to your spare keys? Slowly, deliberately, he slid one key off and placed it in his pocket. Then he held the rest up to the camera, waved, and threw them into the bushes. I called my landlord, told him everything, and arranged to terminate my lease immediately. I didn't care about losing my deposit. I couldn't live there another second. He'd stood next to my bed while I slept. My mom found me curled up in the hallway, sobbing and gasping for air. She held me all night, whispering prayers I hadn't heard since childhood. My skin crawled at the thought of him watching me, breathing over me, leaving notes inches from my face without me even stirring. The next morning, Kelsey left early for work. I stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me. Slowly, things seemed to settle. Weeks passed without incident. I started a new job in a neighboring city. I even met someone, Tyler, a sweet guy who worked at the local auto shop. He made me laugh again, something I hadn't done in months. My hands trembled as I reached for it. We cooked dinner, watched movies, and for the first time in a long time, I felt safe. On the outside, in tiny cramped handwriting, it said, "Read me." Inside was a single sentence. His hood was down. I finally saw his face fully. Thin, gaunt, with hollow cheeks and greasy brown hair. But then, from the left side of the frame, a figure slowly emerged. His eyes were wide and unblinking, pupils dilated so large they almost swallowed the irises. He was grinning, a wide, toothy grin that looked stretched, unnatural, like his face couldn't contain it. In his hands, he held something small and square. He lifted it up to the camera. "You look so peaceful when you sleep." I screamed so loud I almost fainted. This time, 2 officers arrived. They checked every inch of my apartment. The locks were intact, the windows shut. No signs of forced entry. "Maybe it slipped under your door from the hallway," one suggested. "No," I shouted. It was next to my bed. They exchanged a glance that made my stomach twist with rage and fear. That evening, my phone buzzed with a notification. Motion detected, front door, 7:42 p.m. My blood ran cold. I clicked the video. The realization hit me like ice water. He had my key. That meant he'd been inside. I called the police again. Officer Daniels answered. His voice sounded tired. "Miss, you're at your mother's now, right?" "No, I keep my spare in my kitchen drawer," I cried. "He's been inside. He took it." He sighed deeply. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in the guest room, clutching a kitchen knife under the blanket. At 3:12 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Another motion alert. Front door, motion detected, 3:12 a.m. I opened it with dread boiling in my gut. He was standing there, closer to the camera than ever before. He raised his hand to the camera, holding my key ring. I felt like I was going to throw up. The next day, I decided to never go back to that apartment. I moved in with my mom for a while. One night, Tyler offered to stay over at my mom's while she was visiting my aunt. At around 2 I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand. Groggy, I grabbed it. Motion detected, front door, 158 8 Bay. My stomach dropped. Hands trembling, I opened the video. The camera showed my mom's porch, dark and empty except for the faint outline of the railing. It was him. He was wearing the same dark hoodie, but his face was fully visible this time, pale and gaunt with dark, hollow eyes staring directly into the lens. It was a photograph of me sleeping, taken from inside my mom's house. I dropped my phone. The clatter jolted Tyler awake. "What's wrong?" he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. "He's here," I whispered, my voice trembling so hard I could barely speak. "He's outside." Tyler jumped out of bed and grabbed his baseball bat from the corner. He checked every window while I called 911 with shaking fingers. The dispatcher answered quickly. 911, what's your emergency? "He's back," I cried. "The man who has been stalking me, he is outside my mom's house." He just showed me a photo of me sleeping, taken from inside the house. My whole body shook with adrenaline and terror. Tyler wrapped his arms around me, holding the bat tightly in one hand. The only sounds were the ticking of the wall clock and my ragged breathing. "Stay on the line," she said. "Officers are on the way. Lock yourself in a room." Tyler and I barricaded ourselves in my mom's bedroom, pushing her heavy oak dresser against the door. Minutes felt like hours. My vision blurred with tears as the footsteps drew closer, each step echoing louder in my chest. Glass shattering. Then footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving across the creaky wooden floor. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from the living room. Tyler raised the bat higher, motioning for me to stay behind him. Then, silence. We waited, frozen, listening to the pounding of our own hearts. "Police! If anyone's in here, announce yourself." A voice boomed from the hallway. I collapsed in relief as officers swept through the house. They found the broken window in the kitchen, glass scattered across the tile floor, but he was gone. Vanished into the night again. "He doesn't know where she lives," she reasoned. "You'll be safe there." Officer Daniels arrived shortly after. He looked at me with a mix of pity and frustration. Tyler kept glancing at me, worry etched across his face. Just towering pine trees and the sound of the wind rustling through their branches. The silence of the forest was comforting, like the world had finally forgotten about me. "Did you see which way he went?" he asked. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. Witness protection? Was that what my life had come to? "We'll do a perimeter sweep. In the meantime, you need to think about getting somewhere secure. Witness protection, even." For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he slowly raised his hand and tapped the glass, once, twice, 3 times. At first, I thought it was a tree branch, but as I leaned closer, my heart stopped. His words terrified me. Tyler didn't leave my side that night. We slept with the lights on, every sound outside making me flinch. They found nothing, no footprints, no broken branches. It was like he'd vanished into thin air. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face staring back at me, those black, soulless eyes boring into mine. The next morning, my mom insisted I move in with my aunt in upstate Vermont. Tyler helped me pack what little I needed. I hugged my mom tightly, feeling like a child again. The drive to Vermont was quiet. "He'll never find you there," he said softly. But his words sounded hollow. It was the middle of nowhere, surrounded by dense forests and silent highways. My aunt's house was small but cozy, tucked away deep in the woods. No neighbors for miles. No streetlights. I stayed in the room, watching TV to distract myself. The motel was old and musty, but it felt like a fortress compared to everything else. For the first few nights, I felt safer. Then on the 4th night, it happened again. He was grinning, his teeth yellow and cracked, eyes wide with manic glee. I was brushing my teeth before bed when I noticed something odd outside the bathroom window. Pressed against the glass was a pale face. His eyes were wide and unblinking, his lips twisted into that same unnatural grin. I screamed so loud my throat burned. Tyler burst into the bathroom, but by the time he looked out the window, he was gone. That night, we called the police again. Vermont state troopers arrived within 30 minutes, combing the woods with flashlights and dogs. The one I had left back at my mom's house weeks ago. I barely slept. The next morning, my aunt made me a cup of tea, her hands shaking as she handed it to me. "You can't stay here," she whispered. "He'll never stop. You need to go somewhere far, somewhere he can't follow." All that remained was the smudged imprint of his greasy forehead against the glass. Tyler agreed. "I'll take you anywhere. Just say the word." I didn't know what to do. I felt like a prisoner in my own life, constantly running, constantly looking over my shoulder. That afternoon, as we were packing to leave, my phone buzzed with a notification. "Motion detected, front door, 2:17 p.m. My breath caught in my throat. I opened the video. It was him, standing on my aunt's porch, holding up a piece of paper to the camera. On it, written in thick black marker, were 3 words. We left that night. Tyler drove straight through until we reached a small motel in rural Maine. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we'd finally escaped him. Tyler went to get us some dinner from the gas station down the road. Then I heard it, a soft tapping at the window. I froze. Slowly, I turned my head. My blood turned to ice. He was there. Standing outside the window, inches from the glass, his face illuminated by the flickering neon motel sign. In his hand, he held my hairbrush. He raised it to his nose and inhaled deeply, eyes rolling back with pleasure. I screamed, stumbling backwards into the nightstand. The lamp crashed to the floor, shattering. When Tyler burst through the door moments later, he was gone. We checked out of the motel before sunrise. Neither of us spoke as Tyler drove down the winding highways of Maine, the pine trees looming over us like silent sentinels. I kept replaying the image of him outside the window, breathing in my scent like some rabid animal. The horror wasn't just that he was near. It was knowing he'd been inside my world for so long, collecting pieces of me, and I never even noticed. We finally stopped at a 24-hour diner for breakfast. I sat across from Tyler, picking at my scrambled eggs with a trembling fork. "Maybe we should go to the police again," he said softly. I shook my head. They can't help. They've never been able to help. He reached across the table and took my hand in his. Then what do we do? Keep running forever? All I knew was that no matter how far we went, he always found me. My heart sank as Tyler grabbed it and handed it to me. I didn't have an answer. When we got back to the car, there was an envelope tucked under the windshield wiper. With shaking hands, I opened it. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. It was me, sitting in the diner just minutes earlier, eating breakfast. My hair pulled back in a messy bun, dark circles under my eyes, looking every bit the broken, hunted animal I felt like. On the bottom of the photo, written in black marker, were the words, "We can't keep running on empty." Pretty even when you're tired. We drove for hours, eventually stopping at a cheap roadside motel in New Hampshire. Tyler insisted we stay there for the night. "We need to sleep," he said, brushing hair from my face. I lay in bed, staring at the cracked ceiling, listening to the low hum of the motel's neon sign outside the window. I nodded numbly, but sleep never came. At 2:43 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Motion detected, front door, 2:43 a.m. Then he held up a single finger to his lips and mouthed, "Shoo." I didn't want to look. Every cell in my body screamed at me to throw my phone across the room and hide under the covers, but I had to know. I opened the footage. He peeked out the window, but the parking lot was empty, illuminated only by the flickering neon sign. He was wearing the same dark hoodie, the hood pulled back to reveal his sickly pale face. They took our statements and promised to patrol the area for the rest of the night. His eyes were wide and glassy, his mouth stretched into that same twisted grin. It was him, standing just outside our motel room door. In his hands, he held something that made bile rise in my throat. It was Tyler's wallet. No one knew we were there except his brother, who was overseas with the military. He won't find you here. He flipped it open, showing the camera Tyler's driver's license. For a moment, it almost felt normal, like we were just a couple on vacation, not 200 animals fleeing for their lives. I scrambled out of bed, shaking Tyler awake. He's here. He has your wallet. He pulled back the curtain just enough to peek outside. Tyler jumped up, grabbing his bat from beside the bed. We called the police, again. 2 officers arrived 20 minutes later, but there was no sign of him. Tyler bolted the door shut and pushed the small dresser in front of it for good measure. "I'm not letting anything happen to you," he whispered, pulling me into his arms. I wanted to believe him. I really did. The next morning, we drove to Tyler's brother's cabin deep in the remote woods. It was old and dusty, but secluded. Heavy footsteps crossed the creaky wooden floor, slow and deliberate. They were caked in mud and pine needles. Slowly, he turned, scanning the room. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might explode. There was a sickening crunch as it connected with the man's arm, but he barely flinched. Instead, he turned and grabbed Tyler by the throat, slamming him against the wall. "This is good," Tyler said as we unpacked. No neighbors, no cameras, no addresses online. My whole body trembled as I crawled beneath the old wooden frame, dust clinging to my hair and skin. But even as he spoke, dread settled in my stomach like wet cement. We spent the day cleaning the cabin and chopping firewood. That night, as we lay in bed listening to the wind howl through the trees, Tyler whispered, "I love you." I wanted to say it back, but before the words could leave my lips, a sharp thud echoed from the porch outside. We both froze. Another thud, then another. Slow, deliberate, like someone was dropping heavy stones onto the wooden steps. Tyler grabbed his bat and crept to the window. I held my breath, waiting for his reaction. His face went pale. He dropped the curtain and turned to me, his eyes wide with terror. "He's here," he whispered. Tyler motioned for me to hide under the bed. From my hiding spot, I could see Tyler standing in the middle of the room, clutching the bat so tightly his knuckles turned white. The doorknob rattled. Slowly, it began to turn. I clamped my hand over my mouth to stifle a sob. Tears streamed down my cheeks, hot and silent. The door creaked open. From beneath the bed, I saw a pair of worn black boots step into view. "Where are you, little mouse?" He crooned, his voice low and sing-song. "I just want to see you." Tyler lunged at him with the bat, swinging with all his strength. I watched in horror as Tyler struggled, gasping and clawing at the man's grip. Then the stalker spoke again, his voice low and calm. "Be a good girl and come out now, or I'll snap his neck." The room was silent except for Tyler's ragged gasps as the stalker's grip tightened around his throat. His feet kicked against the wooden floor, knocking over an old lamp that crashed to the ground. "Or I'll snap his neck." I couldn't move. My entire body was frozen in terror under the bed, but his words echoed in my skull. "Be a good girl and come out now." Up close, his face was even more horrifying, pale, gaunt, with thin chapped lips curled into a grin that didn't reach his dead black eyes. Slowly, I crawled out from my hiding spot. The floor creaked beneath me, and his eyes snapped down to meet mine. "Good girl," he crooned, his voice low and gravelly. "Please," I sobbed, hands raised. "Please don't hurt him." "I'll do anything you want." He tilted his head, studying me. Then, without warning, he threw Tyler to the floor. Tyler gasped and clutched his throat, coughing violently. He reached out a trembling hand and brushed his fingers along my cheek. They were cold and rough, with jagged nails stained dark at the tips. The stalker stepped towards me. His boots were caked in mud and pine needles, leaving dark smears across the worn wooden planks. "I've waited so long for this," he whispered, his breath rancid and hot against my skin. "Because you're mine. You've always been mine." Behind him, Tyler slowly reached for the bat on the floor, his movements barely perceptible. I tried not to gag as tears streamed down my face. The driver, an old man in a flannel shirt, slammed on the brakes and jumped out. "Why are you doing this?" I sobbed. As we pulled away, I looked back at the dark silhouette of the cabin fading into the trees. There was a sickening crack, and he howled in pain, stumbling sideways. His face was hidden in shadow, but I could feel his eyes on me. Cold, possessive, promising this wasn't over. He smiled wider, his cracked lips splitting to reveal yellowed teeth. Behind us, the stalker screamed in rage and pain, his voice echoing through the silent forest like a dying animal. He just nodded grimly, eyes fixed on the road ahead. His truck rattled over potholes, headlights cutting through the dense black forest. Before I could respond, Tyler lunged forward with the bat, swinging it into the stalker's knee. "Run," Tyler shouted, grabbing my arm. We bolted from the cabin, barefoot, the icy dirt biting into our feet. 2 deputies met us at the door, their brows furrowed in confusion as we stumbled in barefoot, covered in dirt and pine needles. "We'll send units out to that cabin right away. It's all about you." Through the plastic, I could see pages filled with cramped handwriting, sketches of my face from every angle. Next to it, he'd written dates, times, descriptions of what I wore each day. We sprinted through the trees, branches clawing at our skin. The moonlight cast shifting shadows across the forest floor, making every fallen log and stump look like lurking predators. In the corner of the frame, I could see his reflection in the glass, standing behind the camera, grinning. Finally, we reached the road. Tyler flagged down a passing pickup truck, waving his arms frantically. I wrapped the scratchy blanket they gave me tighter around my shoulders, shivering despite the warmth inside. He handed me another evidence bag, this one containing dozens of Polaroid photos. All of me, at work, at the grocery store, walking to my car. "Sleeping. Help us," I sobbed. "He's trying to kill us." The man didn't ask questions. He shoved us into the back seat of his truck and sped off down the dirt road. But we found something you need to see. Inside was a thick leather-bound journal, worn and stained. For a moment, I thought I saw him standing at the edge of the forest, watching us go. Tyler and I stayed silent in the back seat as the old man drove us down the deserted mountain road. "Who was that man?" the driver finally asked, his gravelly voice breaking the silence. Someone who's been following me for months," I whispered. The man didn't respond. We reached the small sheriff's station in town just before dawn. Tyler explained everything: the stalking, the attack at the cabin, the countless police reports that led nowhere. The deputies exchanged a look before nodding. "Don't worry," one said. They took us into a small room with 2 metal chairs and a table. A coffee machine sputtered weakly in the corner. Hours passed. Finally, one of the deputies returned. His face was pale. "There was no one at the cabin," he said. They led us into another room where a detective waited, holding a large, clear evidence bag. "He had this hidden under the floorboards," the detective said quietly. My stomach twisted as I reached for the bag with trembling hands. On one page, there was a detailed drawing of me sleeping, my hair splayed across my pillow, mouth slightly open. "Most beautiful when vulnerable." I dropped the bag, bile rising in my throat. "That's not all," the detective said. The final photo made my blood run cold. It was taken through my bedroom window just a week ago. I couldn't stop shaking. Tyler wrapped his arms around me, holding me as I sobbed into his chest. Did you find him? He asked the detective. The man shook his head. We searched the woods around the cabin, blood trail from where you hit him, but it disappeared deeper into the forest. We're setting up roadblocks, but he sighed, rubbing his temples. He knows those woods better than anyone. They let us stay at the station that night. I curled up on the small cot in the corner, staring at the flickering fluorescent light above. Every creak of the building made my heart race. Every shadow in the hallway looked like him. At some point, I drifted into a restless sleep. I dreamt I was back in my old apartment, waking up to find him standing at the foot of my bed, his dark eyes locked onto mine, his grin stretching impossibly wide until his skin cracked and bled. I woke up screaming, drenched in sweat, Tyler clutching my shoulders. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're safe." He's not here. But even as he said it, I saw something that made my blood turn to ice. On the small metal table next to the cot was a Polaroid photo. I gasped. He was here while I was sleeping. It was me sleeping on that very cot taken just moments earlier. Within minutes, the station was swarming with officers, sweeping every room, checking every lock. But just like before, he was gone. I scrambled out of bed, nearly knocking the table over. Tyler grabbed the photo with trembling hands. He was here. Tyler ran to the hallway, yelling for the deputies. The detective found me sitting on the cot, hugging my knees to my chest. "We're moving you to a safe house," he said firmly. "Tonight." They put us in an unmarked SUV and drove for hours, winding through back roads and small towns until we reached a gated facility surrounded by high fences and cameras. "This is where domestic violence and stalking victims stay when their lives are in danger," the detective explained. I nodded numbly as they led us inside. The room was small but clean, with a single bed and a bathroom. But by the time they reached the window, he was gone. The next morning, the detective sat me down and told me the truth. "He's fixated on you. Moving from place to place isn't enough anymore. It felt like a prison, but at least it was safe. Or so I thought." That night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, there was a soft knock at the window. His jaw was clenched, eyes glistening with rage and helplessness. My blood froze. Slowly, I turned my head. There he was, standing just outside the reinforced glass, grinning at me through the darkness. He pressed his hand against the window, his fingers leaving greasy smears on the glass. Then he mouthed 2 words. My hair was dyed, my name changed, my entire life erased in the span of days. "Found you," I screamed. The lights flicked on as Tyler and 2 security guards burst into the room. That was the last straw. "He won't stop," he said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "What do I do?" I sobbed. "How do I make him stop?" He hesitated, then leaned forward. "There's a program. Witness protection. New name, new life. You'd disappear completely." I felt like my chest was caving in. Leave everything behind. My job, my mom, my friends, Tyler. I looked at Tyler, tears streaming down my face. "Whatever it takes," he whispered, grabbing my hand. "I'll come with you. We'll disappear together." I nodded, swallowing the sobs clawing at my throat. 2 weeks later, I sat in the passenger seat of a black government SUV, staring out at the endless highway ahead. As the sun set behind the mountains, I closed my eyes, trying to find peace in the anonymity, but deep down, I knew the truth. No matter where I went, no matter who I became, he would find me. Because for people like him, the hunt never ends.